Just introduction for everyone as to what we're doing here. This new thing that we came up with, which is called A Day in the Life, and the idea is that we're going to interview people, but mainly business owners, every week, and it's an opportunity for us. Predominantly, what the driving force was that we have a lot of partners that we've been working with for years who are amazing. We respect what they do, we love them, and this is our way of sort of supporting them even when their doors are shut. So that was the driving force, and then obviously layered onto that, we wanted to really have some interesting conversations with people, see what things that may be happening, odd sort of crazy COVID period, and also hear some stories. So this is Kent. He's, for those who are far and wide, I know that people tap into this video from afar, so Kent, bear that in mind. It'll be people from Victoria,
sure,
overseas, from China. We've got lots of partners all over the world. So Kent owns and works for and manages and everything for the Barn in Mount Gambier, which is an amazing steakhouse with, for me, I love their cellar. Their wine cellar is like second to none. So it's sort of an icon in the Limestone Coast. So over to you, Kent. Do you want to tell us a bit about the Barn and you and your story and whatnot?
sure. Well, a bit about the barn first, I guess. We're in Mount Gambier, about 50 kilometres south of Coonawarra in the Limestone Coast. So we're midway between Melbourne and Adelaide. And we're a steak restaurant where it's quite a unique offering. We breed and finish our own cattle in the region, and we serve that in the restaurant. We also have a wine list, which is award-winning, as Tash said. We have about 800 selections, but the strong focus of the list is the wines of Coonawarra and the broader Limestone Coast. We also have an accommodation part of the business. We've got about 46 luxury suites attached to the restaurant, set amongst 5 acres of gardens. So it's a haven for tourists. A lot of people travel the Great Ocean Road from Melbourne to Adelaide, and Mount Gambier is their stop off, and they stop off for a great bottle of Coonawarra wine and a really nicely aged steak. So that's where we are. It's a family business. So my father-in-law started the business in the mid-60s, and my wife and I have been running it. Well, my wife's been here all her life, and together we've run the business for the last decade or so and really grown it over that time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it was a really thriving, busy, crazy business, and now it's not.
Yeah. Oh,
that's the nature of it.
Yeah. Tell me a bit, how are you going? How are you?
Well,
isn't awesome.
Yeah, no, we're going well. We're obviously, we've gone from 70 employees to about 4 employees. So that's really, really difficult because there's a lot of people who put their heart and soul into this place, and they're no longer employed on a regular basis. So that's really tough.
Yeah.
We don't have any customers coming through. Yeah, the accommodation, of course, nobody's travelling. But, you know, we understand that this has to be done, and we're making the best of the situation that we can. I'm just sitting in the piano bar at the moment.
Yeah.
Normally it would be bustling with people having a drink before dinner, or they've just arrived from a long road trip and slaking their thirst. And at the moment it's eerily quiet, but we're kind of getting used to it.
And so did you, I was just talking to Luke beforehand, and he was saying that he remembers, like, going back to the history, how, like, back in the day it was the place to be, and it's sort of still is. I feel like it's a bit more higher end, but he said that like a lot of dancing, like the oldies would sort of, or young at the time, but like my grandparents' sort of generation, who would like get together on a Saturday night, and it was where like the farmers would meet the city girls, or you know.
That's right. So that in the 60s and 70s, they had a Saturday night dance, and of course in those days, particularly in the 60s, there were no pubs open past 6 o'clock. So it was the only licensed venue.
Yeah.
And they'd come from 100 miles around. There'd be 600-700 here every Saturday night, live music. There'd be people drinking sly grog down the road,
Yeah.
and it was the classic boy meets girl scenario. So it was the meeting point for the whole region. So yeah, it was absolutely very famous at the time.
Yeah. And was it like in my head, it was ballroom dancing? Was it like literally the old school dancing?
I think it was more like rock and roll at the time. So the sort of Johnny
Oh.
O'Keefe, sort of rock and roll scene rather than ballroom dancing. But they did have a lot of balls, like debutante balls were very popular here.
Yeah. Yeah. When Luke said that, I was like, oh, I want that to come back. Like, you know, dance nights. Like I remember as a kid, my grandparents going dancing they would have been in their 50s, I guess, or late 40s. Anyway, and they would go dancing on a Saturday night and I would go and just eat biscuits and chat with the oldies. And I loved it. I thought it was such a great meeting point. So maybe we could really.
I think it was more the girls went to have a dance and the guys went to drink, and then the girls convinced the guys to have a dance, from what I understand.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, how fun. Oh, cool. So and you joined 10 years ago, you said?
Yeah, I've been here for about a decade, yeah. So I worked in the wine industry prior to that, in Coonawarra.
Were you a chef? I heard
No.
you were a chef. Oh, okay.
I can cook and I do direct the chefs, but I'm not a chef.
Yeah.
But no, I worked. I'm a wine marketer by trade, so I actually worked in Coonawarra, Pollock Wines, and for Penfolds, and worked in hospitality during my time at university in Adelaide. So yeah, I've been in the game a while, Tash.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I knew that from your wine cellar. Not going to lie, I knew that you knew your stuff just by walking into that room. Very impressive. So actually, you're like probably my biggest judge right now because I look after marketing for Patrick, and this is my strategy. Very makeshift recording device. Oh, good. So were you the person that has basically been driving because the cellar, let's talk about the wine cellar quickly, because it is iconic. And is that your baby? Did you build that?
Yeah, that is my baby. My wife, Christine, who before I came along used to look after the list, had put down some really nice Coonawarra wines over the years. So it was a really good base. But I had a real interest in wines from overseas and other Australian wine regions, and really set about expanding it. And it's really just a labour of things I love to drink. So that's the basis of the cellar.
Yeah.
And if I can't sell it, I'll drink it.
Yeah. Amazing. And so I'm a bit of a wine geek. So Luke, when I said to Luke, oh, you don't want to be involved in these? And he was like, no, you love it. Especially, we talked about the international side of things, and I'm from Europe. So for me, I love international. I love Australian wines, but I also have a definite penchant for international wines and how to compare and whatnot. So yeah, seeing your cellar was very exciting to me. And so when you were in Coonawarra, how long, what's your sort of timeline? How long were you in Coonawarra for before?
Maybe a decade.
Okay, and before that? What's your story?
Well, I was in Adelaide working for Penfolds. So I worked for Penfolds for 5 years as a sales rep, essentially, looking after their key account customers. So I was dealing with the large chains, which was really interesting during the wine boom in the mid-90s, when you really didn't have to sell wine as much, you allocated it. We were releasing great vintages from the early 90s, and so that was pretty exciting. And then I went and worked for Tyrrell's as a brand manager for Tyrrell's for a short period of time. But while I was working for Penfolds, we used to have a country territory, and my current country territory included Mount Gambier. Oh. And one of my customers happened to be the barn.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So hence I ended up down in Mount Gambier. I couldn't convince my wife to leave the barn, so I came down here and I ended up working for Ian Hollick in Coonawarra at Hollick Wines, of course, where Luke's father, Pat, was the winemaker for a number of years.
Oh, wow. So you knew Pat?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Absolutely.
and you worked with him during those years?
No, Pat had left by the time I got to Hollick, but
Okay.
we used to see a lot of Pat, around the Coonawarra traps. So, yeah.
What's your memory of Pat?
Just very warm and gregarious and very generous of spirit and just a really good guy to be around.
Yeah.
Amazing man.
Yeah.
And big hands.
Yeah. I never met him, sadly, but yeah. But I know Matt, so I've been told that Matt is basically mini Pat.
Right.
Have you met Matt? Luke's.
No, I don't think I have. No.
So that's Luke's brother, younger brother,
Right.
so 10 years difference, so quite a big difference. So he's 24, Matt. Yeah, and now just started working for us, actually. So he's a mechanic by trade, but has started helping in the vineyard, and he's done his first vintage this year. So starting to learn the ropes. And
Great.
Yeah, cool. And so when the first time I ever went to the barn, I always heard about how amazing it was and how amazing the steak was. And I hadn't been, so this was a few years ago now. So I've been in the region 4 years, and it was amazing. And I'm like, I don't even exaggerate how amazing. And I eat blue steak. So I think it was one of the first times actually in a long time where I asked for blue steak. And I actually got blue steak, number one, but they actually took my order and they were, your staff were amazing, but it actually came out blue. And I'd had actually a bit of a struggle with quite high-end restaurants where they just weren't giving me blue steak. And I was like, well, don't ask me. That's cool. I don't mind you not asking me, but they asked me and then it would be like medium rare or something. It was incredible, like so delicious. And I think I ordered something that was probably high up in the price bracket. But then after that, I learned that you do have your cattle, you manage and own and do everything with your cattle. Can you tell us a bit about why it's so amazing? Like, is that a question that can be answered? Or?
So I think we can start growing cattle. Okay, we'll talk about wine first. To grow the best grapes, you need the best soil. And you need the best climate, right? And it's that confluence of the soil and the climate and the viticulture which gives you great wine. So the same thing really applies to the cattle. You need the right climate, which we have a cool, temperate climate with good rainfall. And we need the right soil. So we have very rich soil over limestone, hence the limestone coast. And it also comes down to breeding and the management of the cattle. So our cattle, we put a lot of effort into the genetics of our herd. So we're primarily Hereford breeders.
Okay.
And coupled with good management, good climate, good soils, we produce some of Australia's best beef. And we speak to the abattoirs who process it, and they tell us that some of the best beef in Australia comes from our region. So that's the first thing. We've got the right material. The other thing we do is we take our cuts off older beasts. So our cattle, by the time they're processed, they're about 650 kilos. So they're larger beasts. They've got more flavour.
Yeah. Okay.
Larger cuts of beef. And the other thing we do is we age it on the premises for a minimum of 60 days. So that has two effects. It's an anaerobic aging process, so it concentrates the flavour, but it also breaks down the more fibrous material in the steak and makes it more tender. So you get more flavour and tenderness. And I guess the other thing we do, which is probably different, is we cook it over charcoal, over mallee coals. So it's basically cooked over an open fire, which seems to lock in more of the flavour and the juiciness of the steak. So it's a combination of those factors, I think, which makes our steak so unique.
Yeah. And you clearly are very passionate about it. Like just hearing you talk now, like I don't think
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we are. My wife and my father-in-law run the farming operation, and they are very, and my son is now involved, but they're very focused on the genetics and then managing the cattle so that they're quiet cattle. They're relaxed, and we just get great meat off it. And, you know, we're close to self-sufficient with our own beef, and we know when it's our own beef that it's absolutely spot on.
Yeah, yeah. What was I going to say? So you said Hereford cattle. So
yep.
What's the alternative? I actually don't really know much about beef at all. I just know what tastes good.
There's a lot of Angus beef on the market these days. Angus has probably become the most popular breed of cattle, but we find the Herefords do incredibly well here. They're very quiet animals, and we believe the quality of the beef is every bit as good as the best Angus.
Yeah.
So we've probably gone against trend a little bit,
yeah.
But we're dyed-in-the-wool Hereford people.
Yeah, yeah, great. And when you were talking about soil, so and how great soil, we use the term great. Is that so? The reason it's good to have great soil is because they are eating the grass that comes out of that soil. So if that's full of nutrient and well maintained and respected, that produces good grass, which is what they eat. Is that what you refer to when you say having good soil?
Yeah, I guess that's part of it, the nutrient makeup of it, but it's also retention of the depth of the high quality soil gives better moisture retention, so you get growth of good grass for longer periods. You know, if you drive from Mount Gambier to Adelaide in November, for example, you'll leave Mount Gambier and it'll be green, everything will be vibrantly green, and by the time you get north of Naracoorte, for example, it's browned off. And obviously if you were cattle grazing on those pastures, it's not going to be as nutritious or as tasty or help them put weight on as the really nutritious grass that we have here for longer periods. So we get more reliable rainfall as well, which means we tend to get a longer season. So we're not feeding them hay for as long a period of time.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So much information. Gosh, I feel like because I don't know any of this, I feel like I could ask you lots. I only have a certain amount of time, so I can't, but that's awesome. And so in terms of your menu, so this is for people listening who want to kind of absorb what they can expect at the barn. This is really hard, I think, a question, but what's your favorite thing on the menu? What would you recommend as your go-to dish?
If I'm dining, generally I'll order a rump steak. A rump is not the trendiest cut of beef by any stretch of the imagination, but I think rump has the most flavour, and when it's a really good cut of rump and it's been well aged, it has a reputation for being a little bit firm, not to the bite, but a really good piece of rump is beautifully tender and has amazing flavour. And I'm just happy with a grilled piece of rump with no sauces, maybe a little bit of mustard, and just have it simply. And I think that's, to me, that a really good rump beats everything. I mean, people love eye fillet because it's so tender, but it doesn't have the same flavour that rump does.
Yeah.
So people who love steak, we always say, have a rump, you won't regret it. And they're always most surprised. Yeah,
especially if it's good quality from a good supplier, not yourself.
That's right.
So the other day we were doing like a wine segment on our live stream, and we're talking about food matching and wine and food and whatever. And I think I talked about steak as one of I don't believe you only need to eat steak with red wine, obviously, but I said exactly that. So I said a good piece of steak had to be good and no sauce. I'm not one of these people that wants to put sauce all over things. I'm quite a sort of purist. I just want it to be amazing quality and I just don't want anything on it. I just want it to just melt in my mouth, not covered up by, pepper sauce or whatever. So that's good to hear. And what about, would you have like a second that's on your menu that you would recommend? Second favourite, or different seasonal, like a seasonal favourite?
I think, like all the steaks, are all great. One thing I do like for a change, we do a gorgonzola pocketed eye fillet, just with a garlic and herb butter, which melts into it to finish it. And that sort of rich creaminess of the gorgonzola with the tenderness of the eye fillet. We use the tail end of the eye fillet, which is generally incredibly tender. And that's just a lovely combination of flavours. You get this earthy flavour from the gorgonzola, which marries really well with the earthy flavour of the beef. So that's something a little bit different that I do enjoy. Yeah.
Sounds delicious. And obvious question from me, and you don't have to answer, by the way, honestly, I'm not someone who's like, you're on Patrick's show, answer Coonawarra. I do not want that. I genuinely am curious, what is your sort of pairing? What's your favourite wine that you pair with these dishes that you were talking about? Like with a steak. I know Coonawarra Cab is amazing with steak, but is there something else as well that you would say is a go-to, maybe another Australian region or another variety, or I don't know?
I think most medium to full bodies reds pair well with steak. I mean, I think that's the reality of it, whether it's Grenache, Shiraz, GSM blends, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot. I think they all work well with it. I like Nebbiolo sometimes. Because I think when you've got a bit of fattiness in steak, I think Nebbiolo, the tannins will cut through it really well. Likewise, Tempranillo, because you've got more of these earthy flavours again, work well with steak. But, I mean, I'm not being patronising here, but I do think Coonawarra Cabernet, because of the tannin structure, works really well with beef. But I actually think you can't get the food and wine pairing with steak wrong.
Yes.
I mean, obviously it's not going to work with Chardonnay or Riesling. But if it's red, it's gonna work pretty well. That's my view. And I'm not one that gets totally hung up on food and wine pairings, to be honest.
Me too. And so I did say to you that I would ask you this. So I'm curious about your cellar. How many wines do you have in your cellar?
So on the list, we've got about 800 wines.
800 wines, my gosh.
And probably in my off-site cellar, there'd be another 600 or 800 wines that are waiting to hit the list. But I've run out of space. So they'll have to wait. But I'm also maturing them and waiting till the time when they're drinking optimally. But it's a lot. 800's a lot of SKUs to manage and find.
And what's the most expensive wine in your cellar?
Most expensive wine is the Domaine of Romanée Conti La Tâche, 2009, which is about $7,000.
Wow.
I've actually got one here, and I've got it wrapped up in plastic because I don't want to damage it. But hang on. So this is, if you love Pinot Noir, this wine will blow you away. For $6,000, actually it's less than $7,000. It's $6,900. Great vintage, very rare, obviously. Surprisingly, we've sold a couple of bottles, not of that vintage. There is a market for those types of wines. And they are great wines. I've had a few, not that vintage, of those wines, but they're, you could never say they're worth the money, but if you had lots of money, if you were Bill Gates, I'd drink it every night of the week, just about. There you go.
And so just for anyone that may not have heard that, $6,900 is the price of that wine. And what was the vintage? 2006 or 2009?
2009.
2009. There you go. Gosh. And this is a hard question too. What's your favourite wine other than that one? Or is that your favourite wine? Full stop.
I haven't had enough bottles to to say that's my favourite wine. I'm a bit of a Burgundy nut, to be honest. So I love the region. I love the wines. Yeah. I find it like an academic study in a way, and I love dissecting vineyards. And so that's, I there's all sorts of Burgundy that I love, but I drink fairly widely.
Yeah, me too. I love the world of wine. I love how diverse it is, and I love how varieties can be so different between New World and Old World. It's so amazing to experience.
But I love new discoveries.
Yeah.
We got an interesting wine from the Canary Islands.
Yeah.
From varieties you've never heard of.
Yeah.
That tastes like, it's quite ashy. It's quite just different flavour spectrums. I'm really getting into some of the Italian whites from varieties that we're not growing here.
Yeah.
Things like Falangina, Inzolia, Catarato.
Yeah.
These sort of more saline, different spectrums of flavours.
Yeah.
But I don't always drink high end. I just drink looking for new flavours and experiences.
So good. So good. So last little thing before we move on, if you've got, Luke's not here, so for everyone listening, Luke was going to be my little backup person who was here, and he was going to tell me if there are any questions. I don't know if there are any questions, so I'll reply afterwards. Sorry, everyone. But one thing I did want to touch on with you, Ken, is there anything that you're doing or have, with this time of having to shut your doors and whatnot? I did see on Instagram you were doing some like deliveries or something. What are you doing at this time? Like, what are you selling? Is there anything that people can actually buy or pick up or anything?
Yeah, so we tried doing takeaway meals, but we're 10, 15 minutes out of town, and there's some practical issues with that. But what we're doing now is we're doing fresh meat packs. So we've obviously got all this amazing meat sitting in our cool rooms, aging beautifully. So we're portioning them up and we're serving them with some of our accompaniments.
Yeah.
So we're doing like filet mignon packs, gorgonzola packs. So people go home and cook the steak and then heat the sauce, and the salad that we serve with it is there. And like we make our own ciabatta cheese every day when the restaurant's operating. We're offering the ciabatta cheese.
Yeah.
There's a dessert that people go nuts about called the gooey chocolate pudding.
Yeah.
You can now take the gooey chocolate pudding batter home with the instructions in the sauce and make your gooey chocolate pudding at home.
Oh, amazing.
And it's going off.
Oh,
so
right.
At the moment, while I've been talking to you, people have been running back and forth, getting the orders out of the cool room and taking them to our customers in reception. And I think people are loving the opportunity because they're at home every night, cooking for themselves, looking for inspiration. They want to eat out. And this is a really great way of giving them some really, great food, but a little bit of work for themselves, but we've done 90% of the work for them. So that's going well.
Yeah.
The other thing we're trying to do is get a bit creative with the accommodation.
Yeah.
So we're offering people the opportunity, if they need to self-isolate, we're offering 14-day packages in the accommodation, just to try and drive some business through the doors because, as we said earlier, nobody's travelling.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you what, I'd love to self-isolate whilst I'm quite the opposite. I'm at home and like things are piling up everywhere. I'm like, no, this is not good.
I did it for 2 days.
Yeah. Well, in the hotel or at home?
In the hotel.
Yeah.
Because I had to have a test and I self-isolated in room 56.
Huh.
And it was great.
Yeah, sounds it.
I
Good.
actually chilled out and between work and catching up on, you know, it was quite good to
Yeah.
be isolated. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? So going back to your packs, your food packs, how do
Yep.
people order? Do they go on social media?
Go on the Facebook page or Instagram, and we put up an offer each week, and then just they can either print off an order form or just ring us and designate a pickup time, and we will have it ready for them when they come and collect it. So
Perfect.
at the moment we're doing, everyone's getting ready for the Easter break, and yeah, it's going well.
Great, amazing. Cool. All right, great. So for just a recap, everyone go to the Facebook page, to the barn if they want to order those packs. They sound amazing. Sounds right up my alley, I must say, because I also don't cook for myself. So this is quite a dire time for Tash. I'm just drinking. Actually, my wine consumption's gone up. I've replaced green smoothies and food with wine. So it's a bit of a problem, but it's okay.
It's a problem for me too, because we're used to being busy at night.
Yeah.
And now there's nothing, and you go home and
yeah,
right, I don't have to be sharp tonight.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Gosh, funny. What was I? Oh, okay. So to end everything, I wanted to let everyone know that we have got. So I'll put this on the link as well on Facebook and whatnot. But we. Every order that's placed, I've got a promo code that I'm going to put on social media linked to this viewing. So any viewers that were actually will see this, have seen it and will see it, because I will be sending it out to various people. Any orders that are placed on the back of this on our website through Patrick of Coonawarra for wine, there'll be a promo code which will give you 20% off and free delivery. And all of those orders that are when you're using this promo code, the barn, again, it'll all be in the notes. They will go into a pile and there'll be a competition. I'll pull out a winner, and that winner will get a voucher for $200 to spend at the barn. So we'll be buying that off Kent. I only told Kent like half an hour before we went live that this was happening. So we'll buy it off them, and then we'll send it to you in the post. So that competition, or that promo code will actually end on the 19th of April. So it's about 10 days or a couple of weeks. So if you're looking for wine and you want to stock up, there's a bit of a discount, and also you go in the draw to win a bit of a feed at the barn as and when you want to, maybe after COVID-19. But thanks, Kent. This was amazing, and maybe we need to have a more specialized chat if ever you want to. I'm all ears, and it was beautiful meeting you. So everyone, I think just a plug. So Interact Limestone Coast is another page where lots of Limestone Coast stuff is happening, interviewing lots of cool people. I believe Simone will probably be touching base with Kent at some point, if not already. And so hopefully you'll see Kent around the social traps again, and maybe as a guest on our show as well. Is there anything you'd like to say, Kent?
I'd just like to thank Patrick and of Coonawarra and yourself, Tash, for organising this, and we wish you all well and all your customers well in this period. And if your consumption goes up like mine is going up, I think the wine industry will be in very good shape. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. And I do hope this goes away. And I'm truly, all the fun to one side. This is a serious time, and Europe's looking pretty dire at the moment. So my heart does go out to everyone and all the small businesses that are doing it tough. I hope you're okay, and I hope yourself, and I hope at least you've got loved ones around you. So
dead right.
Cool. All right. Thanks,
Ken. Thanks, Ted. Cheers.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.